Well, ladies and gents, welcome to CG Reaction. This is Unbiased History, Byzantium 3, Madness and Devil. Yeah, this is the third part from the Doherty about the Byzantium Empire. We saw the Justinian the Great last time. It was an epic video. You know, Belisarius, the general, he was just awesome. You know, he was basically more military hand of the Justinian. Justinian was more of a leader, and basically he was really smart. Obviously, we know he wrote lots of laws that even carried over today. But in military tactics, Belisarius was just awesome. All the things he did in that video surprised me. I didn't see that coming. But he literally used lots of smoke tactics and things like that to basically intimidate his opponents. That was just awesome. This is the third part. Obviously, I guess it's a downfall from now on. I don't know much about Byzantium Empire, but yeah, Justinian the Great. After that, it's downfall, I guess. Even the bubonic plague got introduced during the Justinian time. Justinian, the plague's name was after him, I guess. Yeah. Remember, people, if you like my reaction, don't forget to like and subscribe. Check out the reaction today. There's a link in the description. Check out the cast of the playlists like Unbiased History, Rome, something like that. All the Doherty's videos in there. I reacted to it. And check out other playlists too, like Real Life Lore, CGP Gray, Tier Zoo, Internet Historian, all this sarcastic production. And yeah, let's watch this one.
Of all the sad words Eastern Roman history knows, the saddest are these. Justinian was dead. For what comes next, well... Before Justinian died, Justin, Vigilantia's son that is, had long coveted the empire. Deeply arrogant about being the great emperor's nephew, absolutely sure of his excellence and wisdom and all that. In previous years, he had been married to Theodora's niece, Sophia, and met a new administrator in the capital, Tiberius, soon becoming friends. So much so, he made Tiberius one of the many he influenced to help support his future claim. When the bureaucrat realized Justinian was dead, being one of the influenced, he told everyone Justinian had chosen Justin, his nephew, to be his heir as a final wish. The Senate went along with it. Justin II was crowned by the Patriarch, elevated Tiberius to command the executors, gave gifts to the plebs, pardoned debts to the senators, guaranteed Monophysite toleration, and promised everyone Justin Germanus would be treated well. Justin II then called Justin from the Eastern armies and treated him well. For 2 seconds. Then he accused him of a whole bunch of bullshit, had him arrested, and exiled him to go govern Egypt. And yeah, not really, having him murdered in his sleep there. Again, invented bullshit. North of...
Wait a minute, what was that?
Not really, having him murdered in his sleep there.
Who's going to succeed the great emperor? His skilled and loud general? Obviously not. His incompetent family relative? That's what usually happens. A horrible usurper that ruins everything? A god tier random that saves the empire? Yeah, that's not happening either. So yeah, B. Apparently this is B.
Again, invented bullshit. North of the bullshit though were the Gepids, some Germs mud-hutting on the Danube, who surrounded by Lombards and Avars were soon crushed, and their mud huts taken. The conflict left Sirmium open for the retaking, and Justin exploited it. The Avars in turn told the new emperor to pay them in exchange for not invading. Justin refused, and the Avars invaded. Tiberius was then sent to deal with them, but they just crossed north whenever he approached. As for the Lombards Narses had hired, that is, they told everything they saw in Italy to their king, Alboin. In short, an ultra-civilized, depopulated, defenseless land. Alboin then invaded Italy, and due to the damage the Ostrogoths and Franks dealt to the defenses, soon took over the Po Valley, the entire north, and spilled some germs to take over the south. Mostly the countryside. They were too stupid to know how to siege Rome, Ravenna, and what was it? Venice? Some island city near the coast. Better yet, the Visigoths in Hispania then took Seville and Cordoba, and the Moors in Africa started a revolt and killed 2 generals sent to fight them. And Justin reacted to all of these catastrophes by increasing taxes on bread and wine. All that debt pardoning and Gibbs-gibbing drove things deep in the red, you see. And
okay, so basically Justinian the Great died. His vision of reuniting Rome happened. He took over the West, and as soon as he died, West fall. And this idiot is basically just taxing and living the lavish life. That's all he wants.
The heretics outdid themselves, with some Monophysite radicals now claiming that each member of the Holy Trinity had a distinct nature. They were soon accused of polytheism by their very own, and to defend themselves, they said it was perfectly plausible for gods to have distinct natures and still be a single entity. Thing is, that was exactly what the Council of Chalcedon, the Council Monophysites rejected, affirmed. Justin then pounced on this by getting them to sign an Act of Union, but all it did was drive the pleb Monophysites in Egypt angry, so the signatories backed off, which so angered Justin he started persecuting Monophysites again, inefficiently at that. Can you imagine what Justinian would have done with such a golden opportunity? As for Tiberius, can you imagine what Justinian would have done with such
Cause to watch my successor fuck up, Augustus, the more I understand your suffering.
a golden opportunity. As for Tiberius, he welcomed one of Paul's sons as one of his secretaries, a skilled youth named Maurice, who later on joined the Excubitors, where he met another skilled youth, Philippicus. Meanwhile, in the forever irrelevant backwater of Yemen, there lived a Christian kingdom named Aksum, which due to being allied to the empire, Khosrau invaded and puppeted. Thankfully, the Sassanids were now dealing with their own steppe nomads, known by many names. Among them, partially, eventually, the Khazars, who then sent an alliance proposal to Justin II against the Sassanids, and not wanting to pay the Sassanids for peace anymore, he went for it. Justin II then declared the Christian Armenians under Sassanid tyranny to be under his protection, and Justinian the Younger supported an Armenian revolt in the Persian side. The Sandhunters tried crushing it, Justinian fought them back, and war had begun again. Pulling legions from the Balkans, Justin paid the Avars a ransom to not invade the empire. And yes, the irony was lost on him. Justin then sent his cousin to go siege Nisibis at the border, but impatient with the siege, he fired his cousin, leaving the legions leaderless just as Khosrau led his massive hordes towards them. The legions then retreated back to the empire, leaving top-tier Roman siege weapons behind, which Khosrau then stole for himself. Justin organized no response. No, he was
Seriously, what a moron. He was so impatient. This is ridiculous. How are people even going along with this around that time? He just fired the leader, left them basically leaderless, abandoned siege weapons. Now, basically Sassanids have them. Oh, this is gonna go badly.
too busy alienating the empire's allies for that. And when he looked back at the front, Dara had fallen. Yeah, Dara had fallen. After so many decades thinking he was the perfect nephew of the great emperor, he got so arrogant and foolishly confident that the moment he realized the main eastern fortress had fallen, leaving the entire east exposed to the Sassanids, and that it was all his fault, he went fucking insane. Completely breaking down, Justin began having random violent episodes. He ran around screaming like a maniac and had to be pinned down to stop. Bars had to be put on windows to prevent him from jumping. Anyone that got too close he bit like a savage beast. And the marks he left on...
Okay, how are people not just saying, fuck this guy, we want new emperor? I mean, he clearly is insane by now. He cannot lead. Or is he pretending to do that? Is he fearing that maybe people will protest and try to kill him because, the Dara fall? And obviously people would blame him for that, so he just pretend to be insane? Maybe not.
Servants spread rumors that the emperor was a cannibal. Given the emperor's condition, the empire fell to the empress to run, again, who made all of the decisions as Justin was calmed with soothing music and was carried around the palace in a mobile throne he really enjoyed. Sophia then gave Khosrau 45,000 solidus for a one-year truce and then convinced Justin to delegate his authority to someone else. That someone else being Tiberius. Tiberius was thus proclaimed Caesar and gave himself the name Constantine, but that didn't stop him from being remembered as Tiberius II. In his vacant place, Tiberius named Maurice as the new excubitor commander and planned to rely on him a lot. It all happened right when a plague outbreak had ended, and with Tiberius giving gibs to the plebs and legions, he ensured their support. Lots of gibs, really. Tiberius downright didn't care for money, giving the Avars 80,000 solidus a year to guard the Danube and Khosrau 30,000.
Wait a minute, who was that empire again? Anastasius was his name? During the start of this Byzantine video, who was really hoarder of money, was really good, basically good at accounting and was just, hoarding lots and lots of money. I guess, all that money he's spending now.
for a couple of years of partial truce. Partial because it didn't include Armenia. So much he spent that Sophia kept the keys to the imperial treasury away from
Anastasius, yeah, there you go.
him. She was, after all, technically still the empress. With the time literally bought, Tiberius was focused on assembling the largest army he could to fight the empire's many enemies. He both started recruiting plebs like mad and hiring barbarians like mad. In total, he assembled many tens of thousands worth of legions, mostly plebeian recruits, and that would bite the empire in the ass. It always fucking does. He then sent some of them to go deal with the Lombards, but they failed. So, after Alboin died, Tiberius instead paid them to not elect a new leader and remain a leaderless rabble. Khosrau then invaded Roman Armenia, terrorizing the locals, making them flee with their resources, which left him supply-starved in the mountains with Justinian the Younger nearby. Justinian then dealt Khosrau his first ever defeat, forcing himself to retreat across the Euphrates, with Justinian killing many and seizing their leftovers, among them 24 elephants. And after Khosrau assembled a massive horde to counterattack, Justinian pushed back, and was later replaced by Maurice on Tiberius's orders, returning to Constantinople. And yeah, Khosrau did break the truce, attacking Mesopotamia yet again, but Maurice kicked his teeth in and counter-invaded to retaliate. However, in the years prior, Khosrau had realized that for all the damage he dealt to the empire, he never did come close to destroying it. And given that his son, Hormizd, didn't seem promising, Khosrau appealed to his lord Satan for help again. For hundreds and hundreds of years, the East had been a battleground between the forces of good and evil. What the monsters envisioned to end the stalemate was the birth of an entity so powerful and so evil it would destroy civilization for good, infusing the damned souls of all past terrible eastern demons from Ardashir to Shapur and beyond, sacrificing his own darkness to bring it into existence. A truly dark day had been brought to the world. The era of endless inconclusive wars was at an end.
Who is that then?
In but a couple of decades, this world would understand the true meaning of apocalypse. Creating the Antichrist took everything from Khosrau, and after getting trashed by Maurice, he finally died, thank God. Justin also died, thank God, making Tiberius a full-fledged Augustus, free from Sophia's influence. And she didn't take that well at all. Tiberius would then reduce taxes by 25% for further support and then annex the Christian Lazica kingdom into the empire to fortify its eastern presence against the new Sassanid king. Sophia then dragged Justinian the Younger into plotting against Tiberius, but they were found out and then pardoned. Then she did it again, were found out again, and were pardoned again. As for Africa, the Moor revolt was put down by the governor.
Okay, why was she pardoned twice? I think if he had killed her, I think that would have caused an issue. That would have threatened his position as emperor, I guess, somehow. Yeah.
Germanus the Younger. Posthumously born after his father's death, the half-Goth became friends with Tiberius, and sort of with Maurice. Back beyond the Danube, the Avars had completely taken over since the Lombards left, ruling Bulgars and Slavs alike. But since hatred of being part of large, multi-ethnic political entities is inherent to all Slavs, over 100,000 of them migrated south to the empire. Straight up just walking in and starting to farm random Balkan lands as if they belonged there. Given the Slavic menace, Tiberius wanted a peace with the Sassanids, but Hormizd refused to give back Dara, and the empire needed Dara. Maurice then began launching several invasions of Sassanid Mesopotamia, threatening Ctesiphon many times. Tiberius then evacuated Sirmium, letting the Slavs continually migrate south all the way to Athens. Maurice then met one of the main Sassanid hordes in one of his raids, and crushed them hard, killing their war chief and forcing them to flee to the occupied Dara. But the humiliation...
It is ridiculous, isn't it? Whether it's a Roman Empire or Byzantine Empire, these people are always way overpowering, isn't it? There's always somebody comes with an army who easily destroys Sassanids or whatever. Germans or whatever that comes, they just basically overpowers them.
The of the Sassanids was interrupted when the news came from the capital. Tiberius had contracted a severe illness. Recalled back to Constantinople alongside Germanus, they found Tiberius on his deathbed. Having only 2 daughters and thus no heirs, he married Constantina in chariot to the 2 men, who he then proclaimed both as Caesars, intending to divide the empire among them. Germanus refused the position, and so Tiberius just gave Maurus full power, telling him, "Make your reign my finest epitaph." By the way, it wasn't an illness. Sophia just poisoned Tiberius out of spite. She did kill him, but nothing more. Maurus, now Augustus of the empire, would focus on 3 things. 1.
Of course that would happen. I mean, he's an idiot. He basically pardoned him twice. Whenever it's a rule by now, if people don't understand it, if you become an emperor, your position is really, really fragile. Everybody would be gunning for you. Alright, if anything even come close to posing a threat, you have to take it out. Lots of people have taken out threats. They weren't even a threat. They just thought they could be threats. And they had taken them out. She tried to plot against him twice and he pardoned him. This was bound to happen.
1. Breeding. No, really, he had not 5, not 7, but 9 children with Constantina. 2. The empire's finance. Cause after Tiberius, someone had to. And 3, and most important, crushing Rome's enemies. For that, he would assemble the best generals the empire had to offer. Philippicus, now his brother-in-law, Priscus, a highly efficient, if reserved general, Commentiolus, an excubitor that absolutely despised barbarians of all sorts, Narses, no, not that Narses, and Heraclius. Heraclius the Elder, a descendant of Heraclius of Edessa, a veteran that fought in the failed African invasion of 468, Heraclius would join the legions and become Philippicus' most trusted commander, being known as the Elder because he had a far more famous son, Heraclius, the Heraclius. To force a peace with the Sassanids, he sent some
Like, who the hell was that? Who's Heraclius?
to take over Persia and Armenia, but when they met some difficulties, he put Philippicus in charge of them. Philippicus then invaded, finding and crushing a Sassanid army, who then fled to Dara. Heraclius though went further, invading deep into Persia and capturing several forts. The West was in desperate need of help though. The Avars were now demanding 100,000 solidus per year, with Maurus refusing because he knew they would just keep demanding more and more, so they just ravaged the place. Maurus then sent Commentiolus with an embassy to test if the Avars would honor a peace treaty. Commentiolus then enraged the Khan by being very honest, getting briefly imprisoned, but they agreed to it. Naturally, the Avars broke it by keeping Sirmium, so Maurus transferred 20,000 men to the Balkans under Commentiolus, who crushed the Slavic horde near the Anastasian Wall and started rooting out all the Slavic migrants. The Avars then double broke the treaty.
Wait a minute, they were just basically migrating there, right? They were military forces, they were just farmers and average civilians who were migrating there. So he just killed them. Damn.
Full-on invading the Balkans again. Commentiolus almost ambushed and killed the Khan, but the Avars were too fast. The Slavs then attacked the plague-infested Thessalonica for reasons I'm sure made sense to them, but Commentiolus got more eastern legions and saved it. Meanwhile, Maurus was saving the economy by changing how soldiers were supplied, from just giving them money to buy equipment to directly...
Hold up there. Abolish the Anastasian supply system that assumes there's any gold at all in the treasury. Instead, the system Diocletian, the Cabbage devil, used to directly supply. Oh, it's really hard to read.
Changing how soldiers were supplied, from just giving them money to buy equipment to directly equipping them, the way that monster Diocletian did it, cutting expenses in, say, 25%. Maurus thus changed Philippicus with Priscus in the east, who was to deliver the news to the plebeian legions. Telling them of the 25% cut, the pleb legions revolted, threw stones at Priscus, and even when he rescinded the pay cut, they elected a new general to lead them. Maurus then sent Philippicus back, but the plebs rejected him too, all while Hormids invaded both Armenia and Mesopotamia. Unfortunately for them, the new general was loyal to Maurus and pushed the Sassanids back, and Maurus backed off on the pay cut. Priscus was then sent to deal with the Avars, letting one of his soldiers get caught with a fabricated message by Maurus telling Priscus of an upcoming naval invasion of the Avar heartland. The Avar Khan fell for it and agreed to leave for 60,000 solidus instead of the 100,000 to defend his lands.
Damn.
The eastern general
Look,
then...
I know, Doherty is biased way of explaining things. So he portrays all these people as stupid compared to the Romans and Byzantians basically. But seriously, that was pretty damn stupid of them, and that was really clever by Byzantium. So the artwork is not that far off, is it?
Gave back command to Philippicus, who would then receive news of a traitor that led 400 Sassanids to Martiopolis, saying they were deserting to the empire, only then to be let in and give it to the Sassanids. To counter this, Maurus took advantage of the Lazican annexation by convincing the Christian Iberians to attack the Sassanids. To fight them, Hormizd sent a war chief named Bahram. Bahram did expel the Iberians, but was then defeated in battle by the Romans. Twice. Outraged at his performance, Hormizd sent Bahram a present that fully represented what he thought of his performance in battle: a woman's dress. Bahram then revolted against Hormizd, marched his hordes south, crushed the loyalist hordes, and before he took Ctesiphon, the men inside killed Hormizd, with Bahram proclaiming the rebirth of the Parthian Empire.
Parthian Empire. Alright, first of all, that's really effed up. I mean, sending a woman's dress like that, obviously he was gonna get pissed off and revolt like that. I mean, that was just stupid of him. You can't just do that, come on, man.
While the Sassanids imploded, Maurus' sons had grown up, especially his eldest son, Theodosius, who became good friends with Germanus. Such friendships were plentiful, because after abolishing that old reform from that monster Diocletian, Maurus made provincial governors, now exarchs, rule both the administration and the military, naming Heraclius the Elder as the new exarch of Africa. Philippicus was then replaced by Commentiolus, who then beat a nearby Sassanid horde, but could not yet retake any of the lost cities. As he contemplated his
Everybody
hatred
comes and at the border basically cross Sassanids and it does nothing.
Barbarians in private, he received news of an unexpected guest nearby the gates. As he went to see who he was, Commentiolus could feel the evil in the air. That malevolent barbarian essence he so recognized and despised, stronger than he ever felt before. A bloodthirst unrivaled, a deep wish to destroy civilization. Before him stood Khosrau II, asking for the Empire's help in retaking his throne. Before the news reached him, Maurus was instigating the Franks into attacking the Lombards, but then they elected a new king and pushed them off several times. When Maurus did hear of Khosrau's request, before instantly refusing, he was also told of the trade he was offering. Not only would Khosrau II give back both Dara and Martiopolis.
Okay, whenever those Sassanids were doing all the thing with the Satan and whatever, creating something evil, was that the Khosrau II? Is that what the evil was?
To Rome, but also most of Sassanid Armenia. But then Bahram counter-offered, promising all of that plus Nisibis at the border. When left choosing between two evils, despite Bahram offering more, Maurus could feel himself favoring Khosrau more, hoping that by helping him in his hour of need, that young Sassanid could be trusted to maintain a long-term peace with the empire, rather than trusting a barbarian usurper that spent his whole life fighting Romans. When the orders came to help the Sassanids, Khosrau refused to let Commentiolus lead the armies, pissed that he just would not stop insulting him, and so he chose Narses to lead it instead. Narses then marched east with Khosrau. The loyalist garrisons of Martiopolis and Dara gave them back. Bahram then fled Ctesiphon and his barbarians were defeated.
I mean, that was kind of smart of him. I mean, supporting someone who's completely new and is trying to take over a place. If you help him take over the place, he'll be more grateful. And, the Basan, whatever his name is, obviously he's a usurper, like he said, and he was fighting Byzantium Empire for so long, so it would be one of his goal, like something that didn't do. So maybe in future, even if there is a treaty between those two places, in the future he might be like, you know what, screw it, I'm gonna attack them again, because I wasted so many time of my life doing that, so I'm gonna achieve that or something like that. So this was smart, that backing Khosrau was smart.
Khosrau II was reinstated back in power, and when everyone expected a betrayal, he honored his word, giving the Romans the Persian half of Armenia. Maurus then recalled his troops to the empire, and with this peace, sent most of those legions to reinforce the west, having now trust in the Sassanid king, if only he knew. Now focused on the west,
he's
Maurice
playing a
sent
game.
Priscus to invade the Slav lands up north to force them to defend it and to prevent more migrants from spilling over. It wasn't technically Avar land, but they still complained. Priscus then defeated 2 Slav armies and was told by Maurice to winter in the Slav lands to save the empire the costs of maintaining the legions. But the pleb legions complained again and Priscus returned to prevent another revolt. Maurice then sent his brother Peter to replace Priscus in the hopes that he would convince them of the necessity to save money, trying again to enact the 25% cut. But this time with concessions regarding granting army ranks to the sons of fallen soldiers and giving injured veterans subsidies for life. The plebs accepted the concessions, but not the pay cut. Instead, they wanted the concessions and the pay increase, with Peter agreeing not to cause trouble. Maurice then got pissed and gave the legions back to Priscus to go both distract them and repel the Avars, now raiding Dalmatia. After pushing the Avars back and clearing the Balkans of most Slav migrants, the Avars counterattacked, invading and cornering Priscus against the Black Sea. Commentiolus was then sent to relieve him, which he did, also crushing a Slav migrant horde because he wanted to. Then the plague had re-emerged from Italy, spreading to the empire. And while not as bad to the Romans as it once was, it was devastating to the non-immune Avars. The Avar Khan lost 7 sons to the plague, wrecking the Avars so much.
And Byzantine Empire was plagued by plague, apparently. So plague was still sticking around. And obviously, Byzantians or people already had some kind of immunity, but it's still effed up to think that entire empire went through the plague. They were constantly getting plague all the time.
Much they retreated north wanting peace. Commentiolus got a little ill, but sensing their weakness, Maurice sent Priscus north with all of his forces. Battle after battle after battle after battle, Priscus crushed all Avar hordes he found, destroyed remaining Gepid mud hut villages and won a 5th battle against the Slavic horde, taking tens of thousands of prisoners. And for the first time in decades, the Danube was pacified. Bitter in defeat, the thousands of traders that had deserted the empire for the Avars were slaughtered by them. Being a good winner, Maurice then let the Avars have their hostages back, knowing it's better to have constructive relations with them than to destroy them and have an even worse horde take their place. In fact, these insights into the military realities of the age were central.
Yeah, this emperor basically has that mind. I mean, basically trying to corner an enemy and then release him, and then just show them that, see that you are cornered, yet I released you, so it's best if we work it out. So just by gratitude they work with him. That is kind of smart, man.
To Maurice's magnum opus, the Strategicon, a military manual containing the collective wisdom of the best generals of the age, condensed into a single book. A masterpiece of the defensive attritional warfare the late Roman Empire had grown so used to. Plus horse archery. Lots of horse archery. But all these victories and imperial brilliance was lost on the plebs. All they saw was an emperor that wouldn't give them gibes, the return of the plague, and now a famine, leading to riots. Theodosius would fall under attack in the capital, but was saved by his friend Germanus. Maurice then gave the legions to Peter, telling him to go fuck up the Slavs. Succeeding in the task, Maurice told him to pass the winter in the Slav lands to save costs. The legions complained yet again, but Peter insisted on the orders. The weather then turned for the worse. Several storms and cold winds gathered, but Peter continued to insist. Furious at being asked to do their job, the pleb legionnaires chose one among them to lead their resentment. The ultimate manifestation of blabbery and the epitaph of all that is corrupt and traitorous. Phocas would remember all, just how bad things can get. Just who do you think was the prime driver of all of those times?
Yeah, there you go. So this is a trend now, isn't it? Whenever something's going great, a plague comes, a plague and a famine comes. Obviously everything gets fucked up, economy gets fucked up, everybody revolts. Basically some asshole like this rise up, and there you go.
Legions refused the emperor's orders. Just who do you think was the pleb fostering the bitterness and resentment among the plebs for his personal benefit? And who do you think was the one behind his emergence to power everything was falling into place. When the internal and external minions of the eternal adversary striked, the end would follow. Phocas's rebels were the closest forces to the capital and immediately marched there. His demands being for Maurice to abdicate and give the empire to either his son Theodosius or to Germanus, this being a plot to alienate them from each other. With the rioters playing ball, they seized all horses and—
That is so good. You know, he's demanding that he gives throne to those two. So clearly he's gonna suspect them like they are basically, partnered with each other. Because why else would he want Germanus to have a throne? Oh, that was damn smart though.
in the city, except
Divide
for
and
Germanus' horse, and act to make Maurice even more suspicious of him. Germanus then took refuge in the Hagia Sophia, but before forcing him out, Maurice, with nowhere near enough men to guard the Theodosian walls, he decided to flee with his family across to Anatolia. As he convened with his family, Maurice was struck with an illness, a case of gout that made traveling impossible, and now he began speaking of Khosrau II as his last hope. Maurice then sent Theodosius to ask Khosrau for help, but later restored his senses and recalled his son back. However, when Phocas got to Constantinople, there was no one to stop him from acclaiming himself as the emperor. While in the city, Germanus tried acclaiming himself emperor before Phocas, but the Greens wouldn't support him. Seeing where the wind was blowing, the Senate proclaimed Phocas as the rightful emperor, and had him crowned as such outside of the walls, letting him enter as a triumphant hero. As the first successful usurpation in the Roman East in countless years, Phocas bribed the plebs in the Hippodrome for support, and sent his minions to hunt down the incapacitated Maurice. It didn't take long, finding him and his family in Chalcedon. And so, Maurice was forced to watch as all of his sons were killed and daughters brutalized before his very eyes, only for then to be killed himself. Phocas ordered the head—
Damn, this is the same thing that happens during the Soviets. When Soviet rise up in Russia, did the same with Nicholas and his family. One thing's a trend, if you're an emperor, king, leader, whatever, your family must be nervous all the time because shit like this, people try to make example out of them or something like that. Basically, it's, even the kids, man, it's just effed up. I can't even imagine the whole scene, man.
Heads of Maurice and his sons to be publicly displayed, imprisoning his wife and daughters as he publicly damned the late emperor's memory. All citizens in the empire worth their salt refused to bow to the usurper, with Phocas using his pleb legions to hunt down every last one of them. Peter was killed shortly after the fall of the capital. Philippicus was imprisoned and forced to join a monastery under heavy monitoring. Narses was captured after a siege and burned alive in Constantinople. Commentiolus was tortured for his vehement defiance and executed. Germanus was forced to recognize Phocas as his emperor and kept on a tight leash. And Priscus, due to his recent famous triumphs, was allowed to live and join Phocas's regime, getting arranged to his daughter and entrusted to serve him loyally as the excubitor commander. With no morals nor restraint, Phocas purged the empire of every last shred of defiance and competence he could find, replacing the higher ranks with his corrupt relatives. But for all the damage Phocas did—
What do you say of him? That is how you become an emperor, isn't it? Basically destroying every single one who could basically come up and claim the throne. Destroying anybody who's not loyal to you. Who's that? Tiberius? I think, yeah, Tiberius. Basically who pardoned someone twice, because even though she was plotting to kill him, eventually she did kill him. So yeah, this is how you do it. Kill anything that moves, if it's even come close to be a threat to you and your throne. So yeah.
And would do to the empire, it paled in comparison to what the true enemy would bring. With the great emperor dead, his generals gone and legions traitorous, though lacking the original pretext he planned for, Khosrau II still followed his creator's wishes and declared war on the Roman Empire. The usurper cared little for it, but near him, Priscus well knew that this war would be like none ever fought before in the East. Having lost his emperor, colleagues, and now facing this existential nightmare, Priscus wrote to the only man left he knew could save the empire from the brink of destruction. Risking his life to do so, he made sure the letter got to him. And although Heraclius the Elder would honor the call, it would not be him who would fulfill it. For untold millennia, the Romans had stood defiant, barbarian after barbarian, traitor after traitor. Be it triumph or catastrophe in the end, there was always a hero fighting for the light in any crisis, and so it would be for this one. The following decades would be ones of conflict and suffering far beyond any seen on this age. The age of Heraclius. The age of the final war.
That's what Heraclius is. Alright, I'm like, who is he talking about? But apparently he's one of the emperors. Who's, that emperor. That everything is fallen, big evil is coming. Who will rise up? Him. Okay. Oh, that's it. Damn. So next part is going to be Heraclius. Okay. Damn, this was a good video. I mean, Justinian the Great died out, and after that, obviously, he was about to fall, but it wasn't so bad as I thought. I thought it would just fall down, like dominoes. He would just fall down. But yeah, no. Alright people, if you like my reaction, don't forget to like and subscribe. Check out the reaction I did. There's a link in the description. Check out the cast world, the playlist, Unbiased History, Rome. It has these videos too. So all videos from Doherty, I did reaction to it, is there. Check out the playlist too, like Internet Historian, Only Sarcastic Production, Tier Zoo, Cosgazard, Real Life Roar, things like that. CGP Grey. And yeah, I'll see you next time.